Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rux, I'm a Western Tropical Astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Libra. This is coming up on the 13th of April at 21 minutes past midnight. That is GMT time. So some of you may be experiencing this full moon on the 12th of April. So 12th, 13th of April, we have a full moon at 23 degrees, 19 minutes of Libra. What does that mean? It means that if you have in your natal chart planets, angles, important points around 23, 24 degrees of the cardinal signs, you are going to feel this lunation the most. The cardinal signs are Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. There will be some people who will like this full moon more than others. It's those of you who have planets around 23, 24 degrees of the following: Aquarius, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Leo. So the full moon is going to make a harmonious aspect with your natal planetary placements. This is going to be an interesting full moon. I am just going to say that from the very get-go. What can we expect? So Libra, from an archetypal perspective, corresponds with balance, equilibrium, justice, fairness, relationships, partnerships, alliances. At the time of this full moon, we might see at a collective level the end of some collaborations, the end of some alliances. Relationships are going to be tested, and we might even see conflicts culminating within certain relationships, within certain partnerships. Now, I'm not just referring here to romantic partnerships, although a lot of you folks, when you hear the word relationships, immediately that's what you think about. And obviously those are very important, but we're not just talking here about romantic relationships. We are talking, for example, of diplomatic relations. So at a collective level, we might see the spotlight being placed on diplomatic relations. We might see potentially the end of some unions, the end of some alliances, or some sort of a diplomatic conflict reaching its peak, reaching its culminating point. So at the time of this full moon, we can experience tension and frustration within certain relationships. Now, tension and frustration are not necessarily bad things, because there is a silver lining here. If a relationship is tested, and if the people involved have the maturity to take a bit of a step back, to see things from the other party's perspective, to see things from the other person's perspective, the outcome can actually be very productive. So relationships can be stronger following a conflict, because during conflicts, what's very obvious to each party involved generally is what everyone wants on maybe a separate individual level, right? So if you do experience arguments, which you might with certain people in your life, this full moon is actually squaring Mars, so we might see arguments pretty much all over the place, but I repeat, that is not necessarily a bad thing. So partnerships can actually come out of this lunation stronger. They can move forward with an increased awareness of what is important for everyone involved. And I do believe that some people involved within partnerships, within relationships, might take away some really important lessons, some really important learnings out of this. And they may actually strive, they may actually put a lot of effort into making things work in the long term, because they've had that sort of like aha moment where they saw things very clearly. So as much as there can be tension in the air and conflicts in the air, and arguments will probably abound, I do believe that there can be some really auspicious outcomes coming from this full moon. Some big themes are likely to be further commitment towards a partnership, towards a relationship, after some sort of an aha moment, potentially linked with someone kind of like losing their cool or reaching the end of their tether, let's say. We might also evaluate relationships and partnerships and alliances very, very, very realistically. Venus, which is the ruler of this full moon, is actually in conjunction with Saturn. So we may be willing to work really hard for a relationship to work, for a partnership to work, or we might look at it with or through a very pragmatic lens, so to speak. We might see the other person, we might see the other party involved for who they really are, and we can make a judgment call. We can say, okay, I'm willing to make this work. I'm willing to make adjustments. I'm willing to put an effort. I'm willing to be patient with you. I'm willing to give you the benefit of a doubt, or I'm willing to change. I'm willing to make a compromise. So there is a possibility that at the time of this full moon, we might realize where we need to make a bit of a compromise, where we need to give in, where we need to let go of something so that a partnership can continue to evolve. At the same time, if we evaluate relationships very realistically at the time of this full moon, and we probably will, because the full moon is happening right after Venus goes direct. So Venus has been retrograde the whole of March. It's going to go direct on the 12th, 13th of April. So at the time of the full moon, it is actually going to be direct. So after careful reevaluation and reviewing of certain partnerships, of certain relationships, we might also decide that they're not going to work in the long term. And I do believe in our heart of hearts, I do believe at a gut, kind of like intuitive level, we are going to know exactly this is worth fighting for, this partnership is worth fighting for, and this one is no longer worth fighting for. I mean, I did my best. I'm exiting this partnership with, I don't want to say with a full heart, but with my heart at ease and at peace, because I know that I did everything that was in my power in order to make this work, and alas, it did not work. So I can move on with my life and channel my energy in a different direction. A few additional themes that might be in the spotlight at the time of this full moon: peace negotiations, diplomatic relations, I did mention that. Mediation in general is probably going to be a key topic here. And I do believe that sometimes we can benefit from someone else stepping in and potentially putting a mirror in front of us, or kind of being this sort of like bridge between two opposing parties. I also believe that we may realize that we've got more to gain in certain relationships from giving in, from surrendering, from accepting what is, from tolerating what is, than if we were to continue fighting, than if we were to continue, I don't know, like throwing tantrums, than if we were to continue kind of trying to like push someone to do things in a different way. I also believe that the good news at the time of this full moon is that finally, after a lot of like back and forth, after maybe a lot of like false starts, or a lot of confusion or delays or stagnation on the partnerships and relationships and collaboration front, things are finally moving forward. But I repeat, there will be tension in the air, there will be conflict in the air, and some people are going to be angry. And alas, you cannot make everyone happy. And I think that sometimes is the bane of the life of Libras. And I'm not just referring to you if you have like a sun in Libra, or maybe like an ascendant in Libra. For example, if you have a lot of planets in Libra in your chart, you may try really hard to make everyone happy, and that is probably impossible. So you might always feel like your work is not fully done, because not everyone is happy, and sometimes we just have to accept that we cannot please every single person that is involved in some sort of a collaboration, let's say. Justice And potentially reparations are probably going to be in the spotlight as well. Reparations towards those who have been suffering, who have been under attack potentially, who have been really, really, really hurt from an emotional perspective. We may also see that at the time of this Libra full moon. Now, before we go into the update for each of the 12 zodiac signs, which we're going to do that, I want to remind you of a few things, or maybe if you're here for the first time, you're going to hear them for the very, very, very first time. If you want to work with me, I'm a full-time consulting astrologer. I work with clients on a one-to-one basis. On a daily basis. You can find me on my website, which is written in the stars-astrology.com. You can also find the website in the description box as well as in the pinned comment. Waiting time after you make a booking. So you go to my website, you can make the payment for a first-time consultation if you're a first-time client. And after you make the booking, there will be approximately a month to a month and a half waiting time. It depends on how busy my calendar is. So do keep that in mind. From the moment that you make the booking, it will be another month approximately until we actually meet via Zoom live video call. And obviously we can also record our consultation so that you can re-listen to it. A lot of clients say that they find a lot of value in re-listening to what we discuss, because we talk about timings, we talk about actually a great deal in like an hour and 15 minutes. So it's always useful to go back and potentially take notes or reflect on things. If you are in a bit of a pickle maybe, or you have an emergency, or you are in a rush, or you just don't want to wait, there's also a reading that can happen in 72 hours time with me after you've made the booking. That is the emergency reading option on my website. So after you make the payment for that one, we aim to meet in 3 days time maximum. Obviously, we're going to find a time that works for both of us, taking into account our time zones. So just know that you have an emergency reading option as well. Written in the stars-astrology.com. And of course, if you're an existing client, you know that you have other options. So the 30 minutes follow-up consultation, the year ahead forecast option. But I was first and foremost making potentially new clients aware of what their options were. Also, if you're an existing client, you can, of course, take advantage of the emergency rating option as well. Just wanted to clarify that. Before we go into the update for each of the 12 zodiac signs, please remember to listen to the update for your rising sign. These general forecasts are created with your rising sign in mind. And if you don't know what your rising sign is, what your ascendant is, then obviously you can listen to the update for your sun sign. But my recommendation would be to find out what your ascendant is and then listen to that part. And obviously this is a general forecast. It's a general horoscope. So do keep that in mind when you listen to your update. And remember that astrology is only symbolically and archetypally predictive. I give a lot of examples, but astrology does not predict concrete material manifestation. Do keep that in mind, in the same way that I cannot tell you what you're going to wear tomorrow or what you're going to have for lunch. Astrology is not concerned with that. So again, remember to take away the symbolism and the archetypal descriptions of what we discuss here. And without further ado, my dear Aries. Aries suns and Aries risings. 12th, 13th of April, active 3 days before, 3 days after. We have a full moon in Libra activating your relationship sector, your partnership sector. And this full moon is squaring Mars in your 4th house of home, family, and living situation. So I feel like potentially the conflict with a family member is reaching a peak, is reaching a culminating point. If you've been having a hard time getting along with a family member, maybe getting along with a parent or a sibling, or if you have children with a child maybe, I am just going to put it out there. There is a possibility that at the time of this full moon, everyone might be very angry. You and the other person. I do believe at the same time, however, that whoever it is that you're upset with, or whoever is upset with you may respond a lot better to more of a gentle discourse, to more of a gentle approach, rather than having a full-blown confrontation. I mean, the thing is, you might take something very personally coming from someone around the time of this full moon, almost as if it's meant like a personal kind of like attack, as if they don't care about you, or as if they haven't taken you into consideration. And the thing is, that was probably not their intention at all. But that doesn't mean that you're not upset, Aries. If you feel this way, my recommendation would be to explain to the other person how you've been hurt. I want to say where it hurts, because it may not be very obvious to them. It may not be very visible to them. And there is a possibility that this other person who you are angry with, maybe it's your, I don't know, significant other, or maybe it's a parent, they might have been going through a struggle of their own, but somehow behind the scenes. So to me, it feels like you're both somehow hurt, and you can find a way to work together, but only if you give each other the benefit of a doubt. At the same time, there is a possibility that this full moon brings to a culminating point some sort of an issue connected with your living situation involving someone else. I feel like you're really angry with this person, Aries. I do believe they're willing to make a compromise. I do believe they're willing to give in. I do believe they're willing to please you, Aries, but you might be in a rush to, I don't know, like call them out. So please remember, before you, metaphorically speaking, launch an attack towards them, that they might have not realized what they were doing. I'm just gonna say it. You might also have a very important decision to make when it comes to your living situation involving someone else, involving probably a significant other. I do believe that the current living situation may no longer serve you, so you might need to make some changes. You might need to make some adjustments. Also, if you're in a relationship, there is a possibility that at the time of this full moon, your partner might experience some challenges when it comes to either their work or their family life, and it does feel like it's kind of like throwing you off a little bit, or kind of like throwing your plans off a little bit as well, especially from a financial perspective. Speaking of financial matters, there is a possibility that you might have to pay for something at home. Maybe that was broken, or that needs to be repaired, and you are not at fault. Maybe it was your partner who is at fault, but alas, what can you do? But I do believe money can solve the issue, and I do believe you have the resources. So what's the point in getting upset either way? Last but not least, if a relationship has been under stress, if it has been undergoing some significant challenges, it doesn't just have to be a romantic relationship. It could be another kind of relationship, especially with a family member. There is a possibility that you might decide to take some distance from this person, or that they might give you a lot of space to process things. So a very emotional time. My dear Taurus suns and Taurus risings. 13th of April, 12th, 13th of April, actually, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon in Libra is putting the spotlight on your 6th house, 12th house axis. Oh God, this is going to be an intense time, I kid you not, Taurians, probably at work. I feel like you are potentially having a little bit of an argument with a colleague or with a client. Someone is really getting on your nerves, Taurus, and I do believe you might call them out. I do believe, even though you are potentially very much in the right, it's very important to be careful what sort of words you use and how you communicate about this issue, because it may inadvertently escalate to something on a completely different level that you did not want it to escalate to. So if someone does get on your nerves, if someone has wronged you in the workplace, or if someone has made a mistake, do give yourselves, Taurians, a little bit of a breather before you jump in and call them out, so that you don't say the wrong thing. I'm just going to put it out there. Venus, which is the ruler of the full moon, is actually going to be in your 11th house, in a nice aspect to Mars. So if you keep an eye on the big picture, if you keep an eye on your greater goals work-wise, if you keep an eye on maybe the kind of like strategic relationships that you need to maintain in the workspace, I believe you are going to do very well, regardless of what sort of issue comes up. So there can be a conflict at work, essentially, that you might need to deal with. Also, there is a possibility that something might need to be repaired, both in the workplace as well as connected with maybe your car or your preferred mode of transportation. You might also feel like you have to defend someone in the workspace, or you might feel like you have to defend someone in traffic, or maybe stand up for a cousin, a sibling, a neighbor, or potentially an aunt or an uncle. There is also a possibility that you might reevaluate a long-term collaboration with someone, either in the work sector or when it comes to your health. So if you've been working with a personal trainer, you might reevaluate the collaboration with them. And if you're not getting the results that you wanted to get, like really quickly, you might say, you know what, maybe it's time for us to part ways. Let's put it this way. Some of you could be leaving behind a job. Some of you could also be leaving behind maybe a health practitioner. I do believe if you're doing any of these, which is a possibility, whatever you've got lined up, because you seem to be thinking about the long-term goals that you have, is probably a lot more aligned with what works for you. So if you feel like, okay, it's time to say goodbye, it's time to part ways, I am inclined to validate and to reinforce that that sort of thinking. Last but not least, do take it slow, do take it easy when it comes to overworking yourselves, Taurians, and when it comes to kind of like overdoing things from a health perspective, because sometimes less is more. You might want to do too much too quickly, and it might not serve you. Cancerians, my apologies, Geminis. I do apologize. I am filming this with Mercury retrograde, so we are speaking to Geminis. I repeat, Gemini suns and Gemini risings. 12th, 13th of April, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon in Libra, Geminis, is putting the spotlight on your 5th house, 11th house axis. Now, on the one hand, I do believe that this full moon can bring some sort of a reason to celebrate. And it could be connected with your career, my dear Geminis, or it could have something to do with your children. Maybe your children have, I don't know, completed something when it comes to their studies. Maybe they have accomplished something big, and you feel really, really proud. At the same time, it feels like you have some big expenses, Geminis. I am just going to put it out there. These expenses could be connected with your children, if you have kids. They could also be connected with this like celebration if you have something really public that you wanna celebrate. And when I say public, I mean like something that like a wider audience would be interested in. So maybe you want to like throw a party, or you want to invite people over, and you might need to like look very closely at budgets and expenses and say, okay, how can I make sure that I don't go overboard, essentially. I also believe that a creative project might come to a culminating point or to an end. However, it may feel to you, Geminis, like you have to make a tiny little bit of a compromise in order for this to reach its final sort of like format. You're not 100% on board with it, but it seems to be good enough. It seems to be good enough for the public. It seems to be good enough. So sometimes you just have to say, okay, good is better than perfect, because perfect does not exist, right? I feel like you're also in a little bit of a rush around this time. Some of you Geminis, especially those of you who are dating someone, you might be in a little bit of a rush to figure out what the status of this romantic connection is, or where is it taking you, or where is it going? And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. But sometimes being patient and taking things slow and not pushing the other person or not rushing into anything tends to work, I dare say, much better in your favor. There's also a possibility that you might be somehow kind of like in the spotlight. People might take note of you because of what's going on in your romantic sector. So you might feel like people are watching, some of them are judging, some of them are saying, ah, bravo, you've got a great person on your side. So there could be some mixed reviews, let's say. Nevertheless, I would not let that, I don't know, like rain on my parade no matter what, because alas, you cannot please everyone, and people are going to have opinions, and they're going to comment, and maybe it's people close to you, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a close friend, but that doesn't mean that they have to approve of your romantic decisions. And last but not least, there could be a little bit of an argument with a child or with a romantic partner over some kind of like different like sets of values that you have. But I do feel like you can find some sort of a middle ground to kind of like work together. So think about that. Cancerians. Cancer suns and Cancer risings. My Cancerian brothers and sisters, I am a Cancer rising myself. What's going on at the time of this full moon? So 12th, 13th of April, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon in Libra is putting the spotlight on your 4th house, 10th house axis. This is going to be quite big, Cancerians. A culminating point when it comes to your home and living situation, but also potentially your public life and your career path, I'd say. Whatever is going on at home or in your private life seems to be impacting and influencing very, very strongly where you're headed next from a career perspective. So let's say you, I don't know, decide to relocate, you decide to move someplace else, or maybe it's your partner, it's your spouse who has received a job offer overseas. So now you have to kind of like rethink your career direction and say, oh my God, do I need to hand in my resignation? Am I going to have to look for another job in a completely different country? All of these are very, very possible. I do want to say this, whatever's going on at home, in your home life and in your family life, it does seem to kind of like spur you into action. You do seem to be a little bit stressed about the fact that you need to move fast. So you might need to move fast out of this place, out of this home. You might need to find a different home very quickly. You might need to put a house on the market really quickly. It could feel like something is spurring you into action without you having been fully prepared. Now, this could give you a tiny bit of anxiety, and you might react a little bit emotionally. Cancerians, oh my God, us emotional, we're never emotional. Hashtag sarcasm. I do want to remind you, however, Cancerians, that you are not alone in this situation. So if you do need to make some quick decisions, if you do need to make some quick moves, if you need to look for a different home, if you need to take action really quickly when it comes to your home life and family life, do not hesitate to reach out to people who can help you. Do not hesitate to reach out to people who can open doors for you. Maybe people who can help you with like the legal side of things, the legal implications, let's say, because it does look like you have some really good help in this direction. You can also reach out to friends. They seem to have your back. They might even be able to like get you out of a pickle or out of a potential kind of like state of emergency, not because there's anything bad happening, but because there's this sort of like quick kind of like pace of things unfolding in your life. So friends can kind of facilitate the path forward. I wanna say you do seem to have a lot on your plate, both career-wise as well as at home, Cancerians, and it may feel like you have to move a lot faster than you are generally used to. I want to say, I repeat, take your time to think about who can be on your side, who you can delegate to, who you can use the help of. In-laws, for those of you who have in-laws, might also be of tremendous help. I also feel like you are completing some sort of a legal issue connected with home, family, living situation, maybe a property. So I don't know, maybe you are like signing the like mortgage papers for a home or something along those lines. There is a chance that you might be a little bit upset or a little bit frustrated because of a family member's, especially a parent's attitude. However, I repeat, it could also be because, I mean, you might get upset because you're also a tiny little bit on edge because you have quite a bit on your plate. So Don't take it out on them if you can. And that is Cancer, my dear Leos. Leo suns and Leo risings. 12th, 13th of April, full moon in Libra, right after Venus goes direct. This is fantastic news. So we've got a full moon in Libra activating your third house, ninth house axis, the axis of traveling, the axis of education. I feel like you are completing some sort of a chapter connected with traveling, or connected with your education, or connected with a legal matter. I do believe you might need to pay quite a significant amount for either of these. There is a possibility you might need to pay for someone else's, I don't know, like education. So maybe help, I don't know, a partner, for example, Leos, with their payments when it comes to covering the costs of a course, of a class. You might also need to pay some sort of a tax or some sort of a commission for a sale. Now, this full moon does put the spotlight on sales as well. So if you've been trying to sell something for a long time and for whatever reason it hasn't been moving forward, the sale, it is likely to happen, but it might cost you a bit more than you thought it would cost. You might also need to fix your car or like repair something connected with your preferred mode of transportation. And again, I feel like this is not necessarily something that you saw coming, Leos, or maybe you knew it was coming to an extent, but the cost is a bit higher than you thought it would be. If you need help with an expense, which is a possibility, maybe it's an expense connected with your car or with education or with like something connected with, I don't know, like transportation in general. So if you need help, there is a very high chance that someone will be able to chip in. It could be a parent, it could be a significant other, but alas, you're not alone. You may have some sort of a heated debate, some sort of a heated conversation around this time. I do believe that is a possibility over money, over shared assets, shared finances, shared resources. You might have a heated debate also with a business partner. I do believe you may uncover some things that, I don't know, maybe this person, I don't want to say they tried to hide them from you, but maybe they were not very upfront about these issues with you. Maybe they are issues connected with paperwork, documents, legal matters. I would not jump to conclusions, let's say. So you don't know why this person hid this issue from you. Maybe they were dealing with their own stuff. Maybe they really just didn't realize that this was such a big deal. So I would not think of the worst, although you could get angry because this could feel like a tiny bit of a stab behind your back. So there could be this feeling of like maybe betrayal, but I'm not saying that it is actual betrayal. So maybe they just didn't realize it. So I would take my time to listen and to see what their point of view is. Ultimately, my dear Leos. Virgo suns and Virgo risings, 12th, 13th of April, full moon in Libra, right after Venus goes direct in your house of relationships. So finally, relationships are going back on track, on the expected track, so to speak. And maybe there have been some issues, especially when it comes to business partnerships, business relationships, business collaborations. Maybe there's been some issues around payment, around reaching like a mutually fulfilling agreement or contract of some sorts that all parties involved are happy with. And I do believe that this full moon can make that, or can, I don't want to say it can make that happen, but it can put the spotlight on that. So I feel like a partnership is likely to probably function a lot better after this full moon. Now, I know that this full moon is squaring Mars. So there may be initially a little bit of a conflict, a bit of an argument, a final argument, or the culminating point of an argument around money and finances and shared values, or different kind of like values, because you might have like different value systems. Maybe there is a bit of a state of kind of like tension or conflict over joint goals for the future. Saying that, I do believe you have a really good person on your side. And I am referring here especially to business partnerships or to partnerships that have a financial implication. So even though maybe you did not from the very, very get-go, my dear Virgos, agree with this person in terms of what the future should look like, I feel like you can reach an agreement. I feel like you can get on the same page. So I would take my time to hash out the terms and conditions of the agreement, because this is a good person. You can work with them for the long term. They seem to like really fit the bill for what you're looking for in a partner. So alas, you do with that information what you want. I also believe you might be making a significant payment around this time. If you need any sort of like I don't know if leniency is the right word, but if you need to potentially delay this payment a little bit, or if you need to ask for a reprieve of some sorts, I hope I'm using the correct word once again. I have all of these words in my head sometimes. Like, English is not my first language, and sometimes I'm thinking, is this it? Or am I trying to say something else? In any case, so if you don't have all the money and if you have to postpone a little bit the payment, I do believe that this person who you owe money to is probably going to be willing to say yes to that. I also believe that you might have a bit of an aha moment around a friendship. So you might realize that you're not necessarily fully on the same page with a friend when it comes to your value systems. Is that a sufficient reason for you to call off the friendship? Maybe not, but you may have an argument around these sort of like different values. At the same time, I would take a bit of a step back. I would kind of like look at the big picture of who this person is and how you generally get along with them, and then make a judgment call as to whether it's worth continuing this fight over different values or whether it's worth just dropping it. And if someone is frustrating you or annoying you, and you feel like you have to address it, but be mindful of the words that you use, because I do believe they are willing to change. I do believe they're willing to make a compromise. I do believe they're willing to please you somehow. So hopefully you're not going to get too angry and let that get in the way of the relationship. And again, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. My dear Libras, Libra suns and Libra risings. Venus goes direct, folks, 12th, 13th of April in your 6th house. So if you've been having issues with people at work, clients, colleagues, if relationships with people in the workspace have been a little bit confusing since March, I do believe things are going back to normal, or they're getting back on track. 12th, 13th of April, we obviously also have a full moon activating your 1st house, 7th house axis and squaring Mars in your house of career. So I feel like this is a bit of a mixed bag kind of situation, Libras. So on the one hand, you might have some sort of a full-blown public kind of argument or conflict with either a partner, a business partner, or a boss, or a manager, or a client, okay? Now, you might openly disagree with this person. They might also openly disagree with you. They might also act very rashly, and you might feel potentially a tiny bit attacked by this person publicly. Now, I feel like you've got an opportunity here to be the bigger person. It looks like you can be the bigger person. It looks like maybe this person who is like openly like taking a stab at you or attacking you, they have jumped to a conclusion. So I feel like you can teach them a lesson in grace, a lesson in how to approach these kinds of like difficult situations, these kinds of like difficult I want to say like circumstances in the workplace. So you can teach them a lesson in grace and diplomacy, a lesson in tact. And if you want to keep this job that you're working in, I do believe you are probably much better off taking the high road rather than being sucked into the conflict, rather than being sucked into the sort of like angry energy. And not only are you gonna come out of this unscathed, I feel like you are going to come out of this with your reputation intact and in a much better position in the workplace. There is a possibility also that some of you might disappoint a boss or an authority figure or like a leadership kind of someone in a position of leadership, because you are leaving your existing job, Libras, because you have something better lined up. There's also a possibility that some of you might experience some tension, some sort of an inflammation from a physical perspective. This is not medical advice by any means, so do take the advice of your doctor. You might need to act really quickly. You might need to move fast in order to address this issue. So my recommendation would be to not waste any time. And if you need to, I don't know, like take a little bit of time off of work in order to go see your doctor or something like that, if I were in your shoes, I would do it. Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings, 12th, 13th of April, we've got a full moon in Libra following Venus going direct in Pisces. So Venus goes direct literally right before the full moon. I do believe that romantic relationships are going to be a lot easier to deal with, easier to handle, or a lot clearer in terms of where they're headed after this event, astrological event happens. So after Venus goes direct. But this woman in particular might make you very, very aware of what you're no longer enjoying, I want to say, in the workplace, what you're no longer enjoying on a day-to-day basis, what it is that you need to eliminate in order to make room for more fulfillment, happiness, and joy on a day-to-day basis in your life. It does feel like some of you are going to give up on a job. It does feel like some of you are going to give up on a project of some sorts that is no longer cutting it for you, as I've said. There is a possibility that some of you may also realize that you're going to have a little bit less time to spend on maybe a topic that is very kind of like dear to your heart, or you might have less time to spend engaged in one of your passions and hobbies. There is a chance that some of you might have less time to spend with your children, maybe because things are changing in the workspace, and I don't know, maybe you have to be in the office a lot more. This woman in Libra also seems to bring something to your attention that you are not aware of. It could very much be connected with your work. So there could be legal changes taking place that affect your work and that potentially also affect your health. Maybe, what do I mean by that? So if you have health insurance, there could be some legal kind of like changes happening that you didn't see coming that will, I don't know, change the way that you are charged, or change like what it is that you can use your health insurance for. Legislation changes are probably going to be in the spotlight, but also changes that affect maybe your colleagues who are based overseas. There is a chance that things are shifting in the workspace, and other kind of like countries, or kind of like the situation at a global level has something to do with it. Some people might leave your job, some members of the existing team. There is a possibility that you might also decide to leave a job. I'm going to put it out there. And you seem to be quite angry from a moral perspective with something that's going on either in the workspace or in a health kind of like sector, or you could be angry with an institution, I want to say. If you're waiting for news or for some sort of a result or an outcome making its way to you from an institutional actor. So I don't know, maybe like a governmental agency or someone like that. I do believe it's probably going to be a bit of a mixed bag. So the result is not 100% what you expected. That doesn't mean that it's like fully bad, but it's also not 100% in alignment with what you would have wanted to get out of this. My dear Sagittarius suns and Sagittarius risings. Full moon in Libra, 12th, 13th of April, activating your 11th house, 5th house axis right after Venus goes direct So, Sagittarians, first and foremost, Venus going direct is likely to help when it comes to any sort of challenges that you might have been experiencing in relation to family members, but maybe also in your relationships with friends, maybe also with colleagues, with work colleagues. And I also feel like you have a very good idea of how you want to improve your home life, your family life, your living situation from the 12th, 13th of April onwards. And this good idea that you seem to have, Sagittarians, is also, by the looks of it, in alignment with maybe the other people there that are going to be impacted by any sort of changes that you plan to make in this sector, such as family members, partner, children, and so on. But let's go back to the full moon. This full moon is probably going to bring some sort of a culminating point when it comes to one of your goals, when it comes to one of your objectives, maybe also when it comes to a goal that is aligned with the objectives of a community, of a group of people. Maybe you are completing a task or a project that involved collaboration, that involved bringing people together, that involved reaching out to others. I feel like you could also be presenting to the public, to a greater audience around this time, something that you've been working on with others, Sagittarians. However, I am going to be very straightforward. Not everyone is probably going to receive or to respond to whatever it is that you're sharing with positive feedback. So there is a possibility that you might be criticized. There is a possibility that some people might not like it. There is a possibility that some people might not be on board with the final result. Some people that maybe have actually worked on the project. Someone may be a little bit disgruntled. So let's say you worked with, I don't know, like a copywriter or like an editor, and they might feel like the final outcome is not necessarily 100% aligned with what they were trying to achieve. They could also be disgruntled because of a financial matter. So there could actually be some conflicts popping up around this time when it comes to money and finances. You might experience conflicts around money and finances with regards to one of the following: a group project, an argument over money with a romantic partner, or with a family member, or with a friend, or with your child, or with your children if you have children. Speaking of children, this full moon can also put the spotlight on some sort of a hidden matter involving children, maybe some sort of an emotional crisis involving children. Maybe your child kept a secret from you and now you are seeing this fully and clearly, and you could be a tiny little bit upset with them. They might be upset as well, so they might reveal the source of their anger and frustration. And as a result, you might decide to potentially take some sort of action when it comes to their involvement with a community of people. Maybe you no longer agree with them, I don't know, like hanging out with certain children or with some of their colleagues. You might also decide potentially to change some of your plans as a result of something that your child is experiencing. So maybe they are actually, I don't know, frustrated that they are not spending as much time as they would like to spend with you, Sagittarius. So there can be a shift in terms of goals and plans because of potentially some sort of an emotional crisis that a child is going through. I like the fact that Venus, however, the ruler of the full moon, is in Pisces. So if you need help with anything connected with children, money, finances, family matters, do not hesitate, if you ask me, to reach out to a parent. Do not hesitate to reach out to maybe even a sibling, I'd say. This full moon can also put the spotlight on conflicts involving romantic partners, Sagittarians. And if you experience that, it may have something to do with the fact that you do not have a joint vision for the future, you and your partner. So that is something that I would recommend addressing. And I do believe that if you spend some time hashing things out, you can probably find a some sort of a joint view of how to move forward, but it will require time and it will require patience. Capricorns, Capricorn suns and Capricorn risings. 12th, 13th of April, full moon in Libra, right after Venus goes direct. So Venus going direct is fantastic because it's going to help you get along much better with people who maybe you've had some trouble communicating with. Especially, I am looking at siblings, colleagues, neighbors, bosses. I'm also looking at children. I'm looking at romantic partners. So at maybe a romantic partner or potential romantic partners if you're dating. So Venus going direct is probably going to be of tremendous help in this regards. You might also be done reevaluating the relationships that you have with certain people around this time. And speaking of relationships, this full moon puts the spotlight on relationships with bosses, figures of authority, parents, but also partners in general. So I am looking at business partners, but I'm also looking at partners in general. So the full moon can bring some sort of a culminating point to a professional relationship, but also a personal relationship. I feel like the culminating point is some sort of a fight, some sort of an argument. That's what I'm talking about. So I would be very, very surprised if someone were not angry around this time. And I don't believe it's you, Capricorns. That's very interesting. So someone might be angry with you. It could be your significant other, or it could be a business partner, but alas, it feels like someone is riled up. Now, you might look at them and say, why are you so stressed out? What has wound you up so much? Why are you overreacting? And never in the history of conflicts has telling someone that they're overreacting actually helped. It's like telling them to stay calm, to keep calm when they're clearly not calm. So I advise against it. Essentially, to me, it feels like someone is very frustrated with you, and they are kind of like reaching out to you in a state of like emotional turmoil. And there is a chance that a professional relationship might fall apart. There is a chance that you might end up kind of like breaking up with a professional collaborator or like a business partner. But if you really value this relationship, my recommendation would be to listen to what this person has to say. They are upset. They are probably lashing out. They are very emotional, but they seem to be in need of someone that they can vent to, that they can offload some of the emotional baggage that they're carrying with them. They seem to be in need of that kind of person to offer almost like a shoulder to cry on. So if you listen, if you truly stay present and don't try to maybe like fix the situation, or don't try to like move really quickly and like put out the fire, or don't get sucked into the sort of like the drama and the tension. I do believe that actually the relationship can become a lot stronger. But I repeat, this full moon is happening right after Venus retrograde is over. So you might have done a good month and a half of reevaluating your professional relationships and of reevaluating who you collaborate with in general. So if you decide, you know what, this is the last kind of like drop that filled the glass, the straw that broke the camel's back, then it's actually a very good opportunity to say, hey, I hear you. You're not happy. I'm not happy. This is not working. Let's move on. At the same time, I repeat, if you do value this relationship, I feel like if you offer this sort of like shoulder to cry on, it can end up being much more fulfilling moving forward and much stronger than it has been so far. This full moon is probably also going to bring some sort of a culminating point in your career, my dear Capricorns. So yes, some professional relationships seem to be challenged, but At the same time, you seem to be doing very well career-wise. So you might actually be rewarded somehow professionally, and not everyone seems to be happy with the fact that you're doing so well. So there is a chance that maybe like an adversary or an opponent or your competition in general might react quite strongly maybe to news of your promotion. So yeah, there can be a little bit of a mixed bag energy around this time, I'd say. My dear Aquarius, Aquarius suns and Aquarius risings. Venus goes direct 12th, 13th of April, and right after Venus goes direct, we have a full moon in Libra coming up, activating your 9th house, 3rd house axis. So Venus going direct is probably going to help on a financial front, and also when it comes to dealing with people who are based abroad, or dealing with legal kind of like institutions, or dealing with maybe academic institutions, maybe also sorting out a matter concerning traveling, and potentially also concerning your home life and your parents. So Venus direct is probably going to be really auspicious. The full moon, however, is interesting because someone is upset. Who's upset? It might not be you. It could be someone else. It could be a work colleague. It could be someone who you've been collaborating with at work. It could be a client. It could be a health practitioner that you've been working with. So they might be upset because you don't seem to be on the same page when it comes to worldviews, beliefs, and general life philosophy. So you might have a disagreement with this person, and it could be over different kind of like worldviews. It can escalate into a full-blown fight. I am just gonna say it. At the same time, my recommendation, Aquarius, would be for you to take a bit of a step back and to ask yourselves, do I feel like I'm going to work with this person moving forward? Or do I feel like working with this person moving forward? Do I value the working relationship that I have with them? Because if so, knowing when to say nothing, or knowing when to make a little bit of a compromise, or knowing when to not push something, not to like push someone's buttons, for instance, can be mighty useful. I would even go so far as to say that you not overreacting to this individual's reactions might actually end up putting you in a much more like stronger position, more kind of like valued, respectable, almost kind of like position. It might even increase your status in some shape or form. You might even end up, the interesting thing is that if you don't overreact to what this person is saying, even though you probably completely disagree with them, you might even end up working in the long term really well with them. But they might lash out. I repeat, you might feel like their views are completely and their reactions are completely unfair and not justified at all. So it can all escalate, okay? There is a possibility that you might also need to travel at short notice or take quick action in regards to a matter concerning legal institutions, courts of law, legal kind of like problems, or matters concerning your visa, if you have a visa, or matters concerning your academic path. So you might need to move really quickly, talk to the right individuals. It does feel like you may be wronged somehow. So you might need to fight for things to be turned around and for justice to be served, let's say, and for you to be treated fairly. So if you feel like you have been treated unfairly, do not hesitate to fight for what is fair. But at the same time, I would also be very mindful of the words that you use and of the language that you use and of like how you convey your message, because that can backfire if you come across as overly emotional and overly reactive. Although you might be completely in the right to be this reactive, I'd say. Last but not least, there is also a possibility that changes at a legal kind of level, so changes in legislation, might impact your work somehow, Aquarians. Initially, this could get you angry. Also changes concerning maybe foreign lands, foreign countries, collaboration with people who are based abroad, might impact your day-to-day work. I repeat, even though this could generate stress and anxiety in the short term, in the long term, I feel like it could actually serve you in terms of possibility to increase your income, in terms of how good a job you do. So just because something comes in out of nowhere and you did not prepare for it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. On the absolute contrary. And last but not least, my dear Pisces, Pisces suns and Pisces risings, 12th, 13th of April, we do have a full moon in Libra, active 3 days before, 3 days after, right after Venus goes direct in your first house. So I feel like you've been doing a lot of, throughout March until the 12th, 13th of April, you've been doing a lot of soul searching and reevaluating what is important to you, what is valuable to you. You seem to have reflected a great deal on your relationship with yourselves, Pisces, on your relationship maybe with your physical body. And this full moon puts the spotlight on transformations, and also on your money, I want to say, and on other people's money. So you may feel like you are ready to make a major transformation in your life. It feels like this requires a great deal of psychological effort, almost, I dare say, on your part. This transformation might involve changes when it comes to your passions, your hobbies, pleasures, partying, fun, entertainment. So I don't know, you might decide to like change your habits, or kind of like change the way that you approach pleasure in general, change the way that you approach partying in general. You might decide not to overdo it anymore, or you might decide to approach intimacy quite differently. I wanna say, because you've seemed to had some like important realizations when it comes to the relationship that you have with your own body. You may translate that into how you go about connecting with someone on an intimate level. Now, initially it could feel awkward. Initially it could feel really kind of like raw and make you feel really vulnerable. And maybe you're kind of like on the lookout for the other person's like response, and you might feel kind of like easily, I don't know, like threatened, or I don't want to say like attacked, or like, because that's too strong a word, but you're feeling vulnerable in this sort of like setup. That doesn't mean that the other person wants to make you feel vulnerable. So I would be careful not to like overreact to something just because it's a sore spot for you, or it's something that you're still kind of like working on or processing. There could be some secrets coming to the surface, Pisces, when it comes to your romantic life, your intimate life, but also maybe secrets concerning how you have fun, how you find pleasure, how you kind of like enjoy life. And I feel like someone is not necessarily happy with the things that they find out about you. Now, it could be your romantic partner. If you have a romantic partner, that's a possibility. If you don't, then it could just be someone that you really value, and yeah, you're feeling a tiny little bit awkward around that. Speaking of secrets, you could also discover a secret concerning children, your kids. If you have a kid, you might discover that they've been hiding something from you. So you might decide to act on a financial level and say, yeah, you know what, you are grounded and you're not gonna get your, I don't know, like weekly allowance or something like that. That's possible. Speaking of money, this full moon puts the spotlight on shared finances, shared resources. So if you are in a financial kind of like partnership with someone, be it professionally or personally, so if you share finances with your spouse, you may decide to go about some kind of like joint expenses differently. This could have something to do with children, and maybe increased expenses concerning children, but also how much money goes on like pleasures and fun and parties and so on. So you might decide to potentially cut down on some of these things, or say, yeah, you know what, they are no longer as important as they used to be for us. You might also decide to tackle a matter concerning debt, taxes. I feel like you could be paying off a significant maybe amount of money towards like debt or towards taxes, but Pisces, You might also feel a tiny bit on edge because, I mean, for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, because maybe it feels like you will not have as much disposable income to spend on your passions and hobbies and enjoyment, but also potentially because you might need to have like an awkward conversation with your, I don't know, like spouse around where the money's going and how maybe you can like save some money and so on. If you feel that you have been wronged on a financial level on the financial front in any shape or form. So if you feel like you've been overcharged, let's say, when it comes to like paying your taxes, do not hesitate to reach out to people. Do not hesitate to reach out to the like institutions that are in charge of this, because I feel like you might need to like fight to like right a wrong, essentially. Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in, for listening to your full moon in Libra update. Let us know in the comments how this full moon plays out for you. I'm also active on Instagram if you are there. If you have an Instagram account, I don't have any other like social media. I mean, I do have like a Facebook written in the stars account, which is linked with my Instagram, but I'm active on Instagram, not on Facebook. So if you want to follow me, Rux Unbelievable is my Instagram handle. I don't have TikTok or any of those other social medias out there. Don't forget that if you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, which is written in the stars-astrology.com. And if you like my content, if it's helpful, if it's useful, don't forget to share it, like the video, subscribe, or you can also support my channel by making a donation using the thanks button underneath the video. It's been a pleasure as always, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.